and Grandpa. Let's wander back into the past, then paint me the picture of long ago.
Welcome back to another episode of the History of Hill Farms. So we decided today we're going to talk about one of the more colorful characters that worked here on the farm. And it's not you, Teddy. You're not that character. No business can go forward without having good workers. And one of the first workers that Uncle Bus hired here to help him shear trees was a man by the name of Jimmy Benninger. Jimmy's passed away now, but he was one of the first guys that came here to the farm. So he had an interesting upbringing. So you want to talk a little bit about that, Dad?
Well, Jim, sadly, his father died when Jim was young, when he was only like 8 or 9 years old. And Jim didn't get along with his stepfather at all. He hated his stepfather, and he would run away from home. Now, I don't know how he got contact up here, but he wanted to always be up here. So what he would do is he'd get on his bicycle and he'd run away. This is when he was 10 years old. And he would run away. And once or twice they caught him coming through the gap. The police caught him because they had an alert out for him. But numerous times he got away. He got through. And he stayed over here. He managed to somehow get in with the Kunfers, the farm next to this one. And he stayed there and he worked on the farm for him. And he was one of the hardest working people from the time he was a boy on. He was really a hard-working man. I mean, and to tell you the truth, I've never seen anybody that would match him.
So how many kids nowadays you think could hop on their bike and ride from New Jersey?
I don't know.
Well, first off, there wasn't as many people on the road, so it wasn't quite like it would be today.
He was just a tough guy. I mean, and a hard worker, a very conservative guy. We'd be shearing trees. We call him Jimmy the Hedge, because he'd go down the road. We'd have maybe 5, 6 guys in a row. This is later years now. We'd have maybe 5, 6 guys in a row. And Jim would be a quarter of the way down the row ahead of everybody else. I used to watch him and think, how in the heck is he going so fast? I mean, he seemed to be doing what everybody else did, but he never seemed to miss a clip, and he had that full shears in the tree, and he'd go around the tree so fast, it was almost like you had a hedge trimmer going on.
Yeah, it almost sounded when he was shearing like there was a couple guys going.
Yeah, and then maybe if there'd be 1 or 2 of us, he'd come back and he'd say he had gotten to the end of the row, and we always had a rule that nobody stops working until everybody was done. And he'd come back, he said, I got both your rows. Yeah. And he had done our rows too, I mean, that's the way he was.
Yeah, I don't know. He did. I'm sure his level of education. He probably never finished high school.
I don't even got more than 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah, but one of the hardest working men that you'll ever want to meet.
And he became quite a wealthy man by just being conservative.
Yeah. Now he never had any kids, did he?
No, he didn't.
No.
He married a girl from Big Creek, a farm girl, and they had a real good marriage. I think he had a neat home. It was an older home, but he had kept it. It was extremely neat. Everything he did was neat. And he was just a guy, I'll tell you what, you see him plant trees. He probably planted more trees in his farm than any individual. He had a spade, one of the original spades we had talked about before. And he used that for so many years that he actually had the wooden handle, the fingerprint marks of his hand from gripping the spade were right in the spade. Yeah. In the handle. It was just hard to believe. And he planted thousands of trees for Uncle Bus. He'd work at the zinc company, and then he'd come out and he'd work a couple of hours in the evening, and he'd work weekends and things like that. And he also worked for Davy Deal.
It was interesting also when he worked here harvesting trees. I alluded earlier that we didn't have power saws back in the day when the first trees were harvested, so everything was done with a hand saw.
The first crop of spruce trees, I remember Jim cutting. It was over what we call the White Pine Hill. And he had a pad, and he had this little bandsaw, and he would get down in the trees, and you really didn't see him because it would just be boom, a tree'd fall over, boom, another tree'd fall over. I mean, he
would just crawl from one tree to the next.
Oh, he crawled from one. It was almost like a guy with a chainsaw or something. I mean, how the man worked like he did, I have no idea, truthfully.
Yeah, and it's funny because in today's modern Christmas tree industry, when people come here to the farm to pick out their own tree, we provide saws for them, and they go out and they cut that one tree, and some people struggle to get that one tree cut down. That's the one tree that cut down.
Jim cut it, they never believed it.
Yeah, he was like a machine.
He always got a little extra money. He and Uncle Bus always paid us a little more, and he paid the other fellas.
So at the beginning, when you started shearing the trees, at that time, you and Jimmy at one point sheared all the trees here on the farm.
Yeah, we did. By that time, Uncle Bus had bought another farm. He had 20-some acres. We called the new farm. And for a couple of years in the, I think it was the 50s, I would shear the one farm, and Jim would do this one over here, which was a little bit bigger. And we were the only people that sheared trees.
Yeah.
It was my job to get that farm done, and it was his job to get this farm done.
Man.
Now, I had the summers off. I was in school teaching at that time.
And he would just do it after
he'd
he
do
worked
it.
his shift at the
And
zinc
come
company.
Saturdays and Sundays.
And Saturdays and
Saturdays
Sundays.
and Sundays. He would.
This was like a second full-time job for him.
Yeah, he was just a fantastic worker. I mean, there's just no two ways about it.
There's another interesting story I think we should share is the time you got bit by a snake.
Oh, well, he used to get ivy poison, so he had a product called Ivy Tox. Now, this was a creamish-looking material, and he'd take this, and he never
Which,
got
by the
ivy
way,
poison.
the government took off the market because.
Oh, yeah, it was taken off the market, and he had bottles of it. He had bought up he had a whole big cabinet full of this stuff.
Yeah.
And we were working along there, and he never got ivy poison because he took this stuff. And he said, "Snake just hit me." I said, "What?" He said, "A snake just bit me." I said, "Get out." And he pulled his pants. There was 2 tooth marks on his leg. So we got to find that snake. Well, we hunted, and we never did find it on our snake. It must have been in a hole there or something. And I said, "I got to take you to the hospital, Jim. Come on, we got to go." He said, "Nah." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Come on, you got to go. This must have been a poisonous snake." He said, "I take Ivy Tox. That's good for anything." In fact, I believe Jim thought he could take Ivy Tox for cancer or anything. I mean,
Well, yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe they shouldn't have taken it off the market. But yeah, that's not many people would respond that way.
He
today.
was struck, and I don't know what kind of snake it was, but he never got sick. So
Yeah, if it left fang marks.
there were fang marks. I understand that has to be a poisonous snake.
So that's the kind of guy he was, though. He wasn't about to stop work
he was
for
a
anything.
tough guy. He was tough.
So now he did a lot of bailing. I remember as a kid growing up, he was the chief baler running that baler.
He loved to run the baler.
Yeah.
He had to have 800 trees a day. Boy, anybody working with him, if they didn't get their 800 trees, he was.
Yeah, and you got to understand 800. Maybe other farms do more than that today, but at the time it was the way it was done, and
you had to really
it was
work.
slow moving, and you really had to work. Yeah.
He really had to work, and he loved that job. And he ended up with a back injury. So he went and had an operation on his back, and he got over that one. And he came back and was working again, and then he got bent over where he was really bent over. So he decided he had to have another back operation because he couldn't run this baler right. I mean, primarily, I guess he had the back operation because of that. He survived the back operation, but while he was on the table, he had a stroke. And Jim never recovered from that. He said he was comatose, I guess you'd call it. And my uncle used to go to see him, and there he'd sit. I mean, I went to see him, and he'd just sit there. And I remember my uncle would put his finger out. He said, "Jim, if you can hear me, squeeze the finger." And he said he did actually. He smelled that, but there was he couldn't talk or anything. And that was the story of Jim. Really
Sad ending for a man who worked so hard and really gave his heart.
It was really sad. I never forget the guys used to tease him about his money. Now, he used to take money, and he was investing in the stock market way back when, in a mutual fund. And the guys used to tease him about his money. And one day he said, "Well, I'll tell you how it is, guys." He said, "I could wrap you up with $50 bills, and it'd take a long time till they'd find you."
Yeah.
So we all laughed. We knew he was wealthy.
And this was a guy who was nothing more than a blue-collar worker, never had a big job.
But he saved his money. He was very careful with his money. He'd have his own garden to raise his own vegetables. And he even started planting seedlings that he'd sell to the different tree farmers. And he did things like that. Everything he made, he was very thrifty.
Yeah. So those are the kind of guys, though, that really were the driving force behind the farm. We were fortunate over the years to get many guys like that. Not quite like Jim. He was in a class by himself.
We've had a lot of really good workers.
And that's what we've.
In fact, quite a few of those guys went on to start their own tree farms. They got the idea here. We had the Jensers, and we had Ronnie Stout, and we had different people that became quite successful raising trees themselves. But they were hardworking guys. In that day, we'd get these construction workers, and they'd work in their part-time, and boy, they were good workers. They could throw the trees, strong.
Yeah. Well, it was a different era and a different time, but we were fortunate that we've had a lot of good workers over the years, and we'll talk about a few more of them as we move forward. So, So that's one of the more colorful guys. He was one of the first workers, one of the longest tenured workers here, and a very interesting man. So check back with us again. Hope you enjoyed our little story about Jimmy, and we hope to have a few more like that. See you later. We hope you enjoy our series, The History of Hill Farms. If you have any questions about anything that you've seen in the video, please post a question in the comments section, and we'll try to get back to you. Also, if there's anything you'd like to see in future episodes, please let us know. Thanks a lot.
Grandpa, tell me about the good old days